Well, hello everyone and welcome to today's video. So in today's video I am going to be solving a problem which has bugged me for a long time. Now I've been trying to make this video for probably over a year now, and every time I start making it and think I've got a solution to this problem, the solution fails and I have to give up on it and go back to the drawing board. And this problem is related to one of the features of this boat, which I've got to be honest, I'm torn on. On the one side I'm not a big fan of it, and on the other side I think it's not a bad design, but it's got a fundamental flaw. And the thing I'm talking about is this, the deck hatches. Now Hattrick has 3 deck hatches, one in the main saloon, one in here in the bathroom, and one up front of the bed. It's very green in here right now because there's still a tarp over it, which I've got to remove as well before I do this. Unlike other boats, Hattrick has a custom hatch, or at least, it's specific to the design of the boat. The kind of frame of it, I guess, is molded into the fiberglass of the deck. And then it has essentially these kind of, I'm guessing, sort of relatively thick polycarbonate sheets, which are held on with a aluminium kind of custom bracket. Now on the one hand, the bit I kind of think is okay about it is it's quite a simple design, but assuming effective. We've never really been out on the boat, so we don't know if it's 100% effective, but let's assume it works. We haven't seen lots of people complaining online that they don't work. So obviously, in my opinion, generally simple is best. The less moving parts, the less components, the less things that there are to go wrong. So in theory, that's quite a good tick for the design. The downside of a custom design like this is nobody makes parts for it. This boat is, say, 30 plus years old now, and the company that made it has gone out of business, been restarted, gone out of business, restarted several times over that period, and no one out there is making parts for it. It's not like if you get a sort of standard deck hatch from a company that I can't remember the name of any deck hatches right now, they will still probably make parts for their hatches. No one kind of is making parts for this. Now I say no one is kind of making parts for it because there is actually one company out there that still sort of makes bits and bobs for this boat, but the problem is that because it's just one company, they can kind of set the prices, and I'm sure they're lovely people, but their pricing is, well, a little bit crazy at times. And when you combine that with the fact that there is a sort of fatal flaw in the design of these, which is kind of guaranteed to fail, it can get pretty expensive pretty quickly to get these hatches working. Now originally I didn't really worry too much about this because I was kind of thinking of these like windows. Naive boat owner coming through here, I was sort of thinking, well, as long as they stay closed, it's it's not too bad. But as I've sort of got used to this boat, and particularly doing the sailing trip to the Faroes last year, it suddenly dawned on me that actually it's a bit more serious than that, because whilst these are essentially windows, most windows don't have the potential of the ocean rushing over the top of them. So them being closed is not good enough. They actually need to be pretty well sealed. If they're not well sealed, then best case is every time a wave comes up over the bow, our bedroom, bathroom and saloon is going to get really wet, which is obviously pretty unpleasant. But worst case scenario, worried to get knocked down or anything like that, these hatches being very secure and watertight is what keeps the water out of here, which helps to keep the boat sort of buoyant and make sure it doesn't sort of get flooded if it goes over. Now the main flaw in this design, at least as far as I'm concerned, is this handle here. Now it's pretty simple. It's just a basic kind of handle which clips onto the underside of the coach roof, or the inside of the saloon, I guess, and that's what holds it closed. The problem is that this wasn't really well thought out. This handle is essentially cast aluminium, or at least that's what I believe it is. And like I say, it's nothing particularly special, but it has to be exactly the right shape and size to work with this configuration if I want it to really pull this down tight. The way this is secured is through the middle of it, there's a stainless steel bolt which goes up into an aluminium bolt on the top, or an aluminium kind of peg on the top. Now anyone who has familiarity with boats will know that if you put aluminium and stainless steel together for a long period of time, you get significant corrosion. And that's exactly what's happening here. There's no like bearing or anything in here. It's just literally turned on that screw. And the problem is that over time it corrodes and gets stiffer and stiffer, and it's only like an M6 bolt that goes through the middle of this, which means it just shears off eventually. And on the one in the saloon and the one in the bedroom, that has already happened. This handle is sheared off, at which point you've got, you know, the end of the stainless steel bolt embedded into the peg up on the window, and then you've got the rest of it embedded into the handle. And you know, there's no way in a million years you're going to get that out of that aluminium without destroying it. So as I say, there is a company out there that can supply this handle. The problem is that this handle alone is £250, or at least it was the last time I checked, and that was quite a while ago, so it could be a lot more than that. So I have 3 of these, which means that I'd be looking at £750 just on these window handles, which seems a little bit expensive for a bit of cast aluminium, if I'm honest. Also, it doesn't come with a peg at the top, so it doesn't actually even solve the problem if I were to get those, because there's still a stainless steel, or the end of a stainless steel bolt stuck in this peg, and I'm not aware that you can actually get the top part of this. You might be able to, but if the handle alone is 250 quid, the top peg I think would have to come attached to the frame. You know, I could be into a couple of grand just to replace this, and quite frankly, I mean, I don't have the money to do that, but even if I did, I don't think I'd want to do it, because not only is it, you know, slightly a rip-off, shall we say, but also it's not a great solution. So all I'm doing is spending a fortune on a terrible solution. So what were the alternatives? Well, because it's kind of a custom design, I can't kind of find an alternative hatch to put it in. I mean, it could theoretically be done, but you'd be talking about, you know, cutting a hole in the deck for the new hatch and sealing it and fiberglassing it and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's a pretty big job to take on board simply to fix a handle. So I didn't really want to do that. So I have spent a lot of time trying to figure out a way to solve this. And I've been through a lot of different iterations of this, but there's been kind of one main solution that I came up with. So join me up here in the boudoir and I will show you what my first idea was. Now, fortunately, in my machinations on this, one thing I noticed is the peg that comes down through the window actually has an M12 thread on it, and there's normally a bolt on the top of here which kind of holds it all in place. Now, that was kind of the best opportunity I had to create something, because at least it was a sort of standard thing that I could find something to fit to. And this was my first idea, kind of an old school design, where basically I got this stainless steel lifting eye with an M12 thread on it, attached it onto here. I got a bit of line spliced onto it, and then I put a cleat on the roof here, which would allow me to basically just secure it that way. I'd say a bit of an old school solution, pretty simple, and I thought, well, maybe that would kind of work, and it kind of does. I say, but this was kind of back in my thinking about this just being kind of a window, so I was just thinking about, well, I just need something to hold it closed and stop anyone from being able to open it from the outside, and I thought this would kind of work. As it turned out, it hasn't really worked very well. The main problem being that because of the size of this ring, the rope is pulling it that way as opposed to down, and it really needs to be pulling it down to hold it tight against the rubber seal. And whilst it kind of is secure, there is some movement in it. And like I say, that's fine most of the part, but this means that this seal here is not doing a very effective job, and helpfully this window faces forward, so the first time a wave comes over the bow, our bed's going to get soaked. So yeah, unfortunately, despite a lot of time putting this all together, it just didn't work, and there's no way possible for me to tie this down tight enough to make it work. Okay, so I'm outside in the wind, hopefully you can hear me over it, and here I am above the saloon hatch. This is kind of partly assembled already, but I thought I'd come out here and show you exactly what I mean. But as you can see, it's got this kind of nice sort of clean design. It's molded into the deck. It's essentially just kind of three moving pieces. You got the hinge, which is this frame assembly here. You got the window, which is this just polycarbonate sheet, and then you've got the handle, which goes underneath this. And this is sort of the peg that I was talking about that the handle attaches to the bottom of. If I take it all apart, you'll be able to see, for the sake of it's already sort of disassembled. You can see this is the sort of mechanism working with. It's got these custom sort of bolt, screw, bolt, whatever you want to call it. That's the peg that the handle attaches to, and then the window itself, like I say, is just a sheet of polycarbonate that's sat in there, and it has, you know, some pretty decent, to not fall off the deck, It's got some pretty decent seals, and it's got this kind of external channel which allows the water to sort of quickly run out of it. So I think, like I say, I think it's a good design until something goes wrong and you can't get the parts for it. Okay, so back inside and out of the wind. So now we're gonna have a look at my latest design, which I really hope works, because say we are planning on launching the boat tomorrow, and I'd really like these hatches to be secure by then. So the failure of the sort of rope and cleat idea taught me that I need something that is going to pull the hatch downwards, not to the side, and it actually needs a fair bit of force and no sort of flex like you get in a rope to make sure it's really like holding against that seal that's going to stop water coming in. I also really want it to be from sort of standardized parts that I can get easily and replace. I didn't want to have to get into a load of machining and stuff like that. So starting from that M12 thread, I've kind of built up a bit of a design which I think, question mark, is going to work. Today we're going to find out. So this is essentially what I've come up with. What it is a combination of a few different parts. I have a I'm not sure what you'd call it. It's like a sleeve which is threaded with an M12 in the middle. That will go on to the peg. I then have a short section of stainless threaded bar which will screw into that sleeve and basically extend that thread. I then have this, which was made by a friend of mine who's a machinist, and essentially it's a stainless steel bar with a stainless steel tube which will slide over the top of that. And then I have this giant M12 stainless wing nut thing which will go on there. And the idea being that will be able to clamp down onto the roof of the saloon, and we'll clamp it all closed. You'll be able to sort of tighten it up with that, and it'll really sort of clamp it down. And in theory, this should work. Now, I need to basically do a bit of adjustment because these are all sort of not made to the right size, so I got to get to work with the angle grinder and cut a few of these pieces down to get them to fit. But I can't think of any reason this isn't going to work, which probably means there's a reason out there that I haven't thought of. But yeah, so we've got to get to work with the angle grinder. We've got to cut these pieces down, get them to the right shape and size, and then see if finally the windows are fixed. And in the process, I've saved myself, maybe a couple of £1,000 in doing the job. Well, I hate to jinx it, but I think this might have actually worked. So I've had to adjust, cut down some of the metal bits and things like that, and I've actually put the leg upside down, or at least upside down from where I thought it was going to be, just because there's not a huge amount of play in here, and I need a bit of space for this to sort of tighten down. But I've got to say, it's not, the hinge isn't held down on this side right now, so it will lift up on that side, but on this side, that is pretty solid, and it is nice and snug against the seal. So does that mean it works? Certainly works better than it did. And if I undo this, I can basically just rotate that out of the way, and the hatch will still open. God damn it, I think this guy's actually achieved something for once. That's pretty impressive. Right, so I've got to do this on, I mean, realistically, I need to do it on all three. Although the middle one's still got the handle, if I show you in here, so yeah, this one still has the handle, but it is, I don't know if you'll be able to tell on the camera, but it is extremely tight, which makes me think that this is probably a couple of dozen turns at most away from shearing off as well. But also, if I close it all the way, which, to be honest, it won't even go beyond that point. If I close it all the way to there, you'll notice there's still a bit of play in this window, and I think that will probably not be very well sealed. Now, fortunately, this one is facing towards the back of the boat rather than the front, so maybe it'll be a bit safer, and it's the bathroom, so a bit of water coming in there is not going to be as problematic as it is if it drops onto the bed. But I've got to be honest, I think it's probably going to be worth swapping that one, because I'm actually pretty confident that this is going to work quite nicely. So let's switch to a time lapse and let's get those other two windows sorted. Well, I gotta say, that has gone together remarkably well, to the point that I'm actually quite suspicious of how well that's gone. Because, like I say, whilst this video is probably gonna be pretty short and seem maybe a little insignificant, I have spent a year going back and forth on this, trying out ideas, you know, trawling through component and nut and bolt websites, trying to see what might work to make this come together. And in the space of like half an hour, I've fitted this and it seems to work really, really well. So, I mean, cost-wise, I think these wing nuts cost me, I think I paid about 20 quid for 4, and it actually came with an eye bolt, which I was planning on using, but I didn't need in the end. The sleeves and the threaded bar were, I mean, all three of both were probably about 15 quid. So I've probably spent, and I bought the stainless steel bar. So I think in total to do all three, I've probably spent 50 quid. And I think what I've got here is a much better solution than the original aluminium stainless steel nightmare combination. Obviously I'm still combining stainless in this sleeve and the bolt above it, but all this is a bit more robust and big. I've just got some spindly little bolt in the middle of it, so I don't think that's ever really going to be a major issue in terms of corrosion. It will be a problem over time, but I don't think it's going to be a major issue. So yeah, so like I say, total refit cost 50 quid versus, assuming I could get the parts, probably in the region of 1,500 to 2,000 pounds. So I think that's a pretty decent saving for, I think, like I say, what is actually a better solution. And yeah, I hope you very much enjoy this video. We are at this stage about 24 hours from putting the boat in the water. So yeah, stay subscribed and tuned for some sailing videos coming down the line. That'll be a novelty on this channel after the last year. And I want to thank you so much for stopping by, and hope very much you'll stop by for the next one.